Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to your calendar's franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we had the conference finals. Unfortunately, it was the fourth straight year this team has lost in the conference finals, so once again, a year with no Stanley Cup. So I'm honestly not too sure what the problem is with this team, because we have good coaching staff, we have really good players on our team. We might be too good of a team, and that's maybe our problem, but I don't really know how this team hasn't been able to win a championship so far. As I mentioned in prior episodes, we've had so many good runs over the last 6 seasons, but this team just cannot find a way to win that Stanley Cup. Look at all these runs since 2036. This first year, we obviously went to the Stanley Cup Finals, lost to the Edmonton Oilers. Then the year afterwards was a pretty disappointing year where we were our first round exit. However, in the last 4 years, we've made the conference finals every single year, but we have not gotten back to that Stanley Cup Finals again. So it's been rather disappointing in terms of that. Now, this is still a really fun team to run and all that, but I don't really know what we need to do to make our team actually a championship caliber team, because like I said, our team is really good on paper, but for some reason they just can't get over that hump. Even last offseason, we made some pretty drastic additions. We decided to change up our backup goaltending. We also decided to change up our top 6 defensive pairing by bringing guys like Fisher and Gustafsson, just to change up things in terms of chemistry a bit. And I thought that would have helped our team a bit, but unfortunately, it just could not get us a Stanley Cup win as well. So I'm not too sure what this team really needs, but hopefully we could figure it out sooner rather than later, because we do not have a lot of time left of this franchise mode. Also, this offseason, we have some pretty big contracts that we got to start giving out, to guys like Ragnarsson, who is a pending RFA. We also have Bigras, who's a pending RFA that's going to need more money. And then also the big one on defense is going to be Schaefer. There's also Holmstrom and Carlton. So a lot of money that needs to be spent on some of the young players on this team. So a little bit worried about how much cap space we might have left, but yeah, we are running out of time with guys like Solovyov, for instance, who has only 1 year left before he becomes a pending free agent. So this team might have to go through a little bit of change, I guess, before it wins the Stanley Cup. I'm not too sure if we want to be starting to flip away players to basically readjust our team a bit, but Solovyov being a pending UFA at the end of the next season is kind of disappointing, because he's been such a good goaltender for us, especially in the playoffs, not necessarily in a regular season all the time, but he's been a really good playoff goalie for the most part. So hopefully we could hold on to him when his contract ends, but if we can't, we might have to get rid of him in order to find a way to win a Stanley Cup. Maybe he's the reason why we haven't won a Stanley Cup. I'm not too sure. So yeah, that's basically that. Hopefully we could have a good offseason here, a good draft and resign stage, kind of maintain our roster as much as possible, but there is a chance that in next episode we might start to make some deals with players on our roster to try and change things up again, just like we did last season. We also might have some youth injection from the AHL and also from juniors, so that will be at least a little bit interesting to see if those guys can maybe change the complexion of this roster a little bit. So with that said, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll get into this draft and see what we could snag up for prospects. So the first and only comment is from Michael Dose, who says the curse of being the Islanders. And yeah, that pretty much sums up this series. I think it's almost been a curse in a way, because there's been players that we've had on a roster that have been good players that we decided to trade away, and then they go on to win a Stanley Cup. Because if you guys didn't see in last episode, Chicago ended up winning a Stanley Cup, and they were the team we made a big offseason trade with to get guys like Gustafsson and Fisher with on the defensive core. So we gave Chicago a couple other pieces that helped win them the Stanley Cup, including a young defenseman in Haken, who's only 20 years old, now a Stanley Cup champion. And then also Novoseltsev is now a Stanley Cup champion as well. So yeah, I don't know how this Chicago team won the Stanley Cup. Their defensive core is a lot worse than ours, but Novoseltsev and Haken decided to leave the team. We decided to flip them, and we ended up losing in the conference finals. They went on to win a Stanley Cup, which is pretty disappointing from our standpoint. So I'm hoping that, like I said, we could find a way to readjust this team a little bit, maybe dive into trading away some people that have been here for a while in next episode. I don't know if I'll trade him in this episode, but Leahy, for instance, he has that modified no trade clause. Maybe we look to flip him away. Maybe that's something that we need to do. Aside from that, there's not really much else I would flip away at this point. It is going to be hard to get guys ice time like Bigras, Kazanov, and Mashenko, so we might have to make some pretty drastic adjustments. Maybe somebody like Cialfido would be somebody to trade away, even though I really like Cialfido because he is a pending UFA in a few years, or actually in one season, I should say. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get as much ice time down the road because Ragnarsson could take over that spot, or even Biggers could take that spot, or Kazanov, or Mishenko. So there's definitely got to be some sort of a flip over with this team, but I'm not really sure on exactly who I would flip away if I could. Also, like from a defensive standpoint, we have too many guys that are listed as top sixes, so we have to do a move there. We probably will end up letting go of Menard because Komatov is ready for the NHL, but there's just so many moves that this team needs to make, but I honestly don't really know who I would part ways with. Also, which kind of restricts us a bit, is we have a bunch of guys on no movement clauses, so that kind of sucks a bit. Tatar on defense is also going to be a pending UFA in the next year or so, so him, Cialfido, and even Solovyov all could leave in one offseason, which would be kind of detrimental, but I think it could also help our team if we want to in terms of like cap space and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens when we get to that point. But obviously, right now the main thing we want to do is kind of maintain this roster because we have only like I think another 6 or 7 seasons left of this. So we do not have a lot of times left to win a Stanley Cup in. So with that said, let's hit up into the draft. I don't think it's going to be a super good draft because we were looking at it in last episode and it didn't look super deep. So I don't really expect us to get too much in terms of our prospect pool, but I'm hoping that at least our main roster, we could re-sign everybody in the re-sign stage. So we're not drafting until quite late in this draft again, as per usual, but we probably will end up getting stuck with just a generic like top 6. There is a low elite that I might just go off the board with McMillan, I guess, because he's a low elite, so we probably will end up going with him. Aside from that, though, I don't know if there's going to be anybody else that we get in other rounds that are going to be super good. So it's probably going to be a weaker class, but it is what it is. At this point, we probably don't really care too much about those prospects anyways, as much as we used to. We do still have time to develop them, but it is getting kind of closer to the end, like I said. So anyways, let's take a look at this year's top 5. We're not going to try and move up at all. Let's see what Buffalo takes at number 1. They take Zaitsev, who's an 83 overall medium elite center sniper. Let's take a look at Zaitsev, Sergei Zaitsev. Looking pretty decent. Really good shooting categories as you'd expect from a sniper. And he also has wheels and make it snappy. Kind of a smaller dude. I didn't even realize 5'8", 176. So definitely maybe going to be a speed demon for the Buffalo Sabres. Carolina at number 2 is going to select Eriksson, who's a left-wing playmaker. What's your first name? Ulf Eriksson. Sounds like a guy that used to play probably in the 1980s with a name like that, or 90s. But looks pretty decent. Also has some solid face-offs, so maybe they'll use him as a centerman. Has tape-to-tape. And he's also a smaller dude, too, at 5'9", 169. So 2 shorter dudes in this early stages. Okay. Let's see what Vancouver takes at 3. They take Marshall, who's a high top 6, 65 overall. So that's a little bit of a weird pick to take at 3rd overall, but they decided to go with Stan Marshall. So there's him. He's obviously a few more years out, but I guess they really like the looks of him. So there is Marshall. Edmonton at 4 is going to select another medium elite in Armsden, who's a right-wing playmaker, 82 overall. Jeff Armsden looks pretty damn good. I'm surprised the Canucks didn't go with this guy. But I guess they wanted the left winger instead, so there's that. He's got wheels and tape-to-tape. A lot of these guys are kind of fast players here out of the draft. And the Jets at 5 are going to select Lawson, who is an 80 overall two-way defenseman, Zane Lawson. It's the first defender off the board. Looking pretty solid. Okay. So a little bit of a weird top 5, I would say, especially with Marshall going top 3, but the rest of these picks are pretty damn good. 3 Canadian teams in the top 5 this year, so that's kind of neat. So let's assimilate to our pick, and let's hope that that low lead that we end up getting is a pretty good steal. But we'll take a look at what went before, just in case. If there was any steals, some medium top 6 Ds and top 6 forwards, some top 9 forwards as well. No real crazy steal here so far. As you'd expect, 72 overall is pretty good for Pressburg, but that's how good he should be around that point. Regeer's a 78 overall top 6. That's a pretty good pick there for Tampa. Literally listed as a dev forward out of the draft at 13th overall. A medium elite 65 went right before in Tony Comrie. That's a pretty good pick there for the Caps, power forward. Another medium elite in Kuka. Kimo Kuka. What a name. All right. So it looks like there was okay players in the early stages, but in general, a pretty standard draft class. That's a pretty good pickup at 6th in Mellenby for Detroit. Let's see how good that low lead is, because to be honest, I don't think I want to take a chance on guys like Phi, because he's probably just a top 6 or top 9. Same goes with like Ruslan Alexandrov. So we might as well go for the guaranteed low lead playmaker. That's a center and Christian McMillan. We do also kind of need some more centers, I guess, down the road, just in case we end up getting rid of, say, Leahy and all that. So let's go with McMillan. He's probably going to be like a 65 overall, which means he's not going to be ready for a few more years still, but he should be a decent prospect for us. So let's take McMillan and see how good he is. And he's a 66. Yeah, I kind of expected him to be around that point. 66 overall, low lead playmaker in Christian McMillan. Not the best face-off stats for a center, but we could still use him as a winger playmaker or try and develop his face-off stats, of course. Yeah, he's looking pretty solid. Hopefully he gets a lot of growth in 1 year and maybe makes the NHL team within a season. That's a pretty good steal for this standpoint, because there's other players going around this point that were lower overalls and worse potentials, so... Let's simulate to number 32. I forgot we have 2 first-rounders this year. Could have probably taken him with the other pick. But oh well. What went before? So Phi was medium 9 and Alexandrov was medium 9. So it's good we didn't go with those guys. Let's see if we could get another steal in this first round. I forgot that we had multiple picks in the first round for some weird reason. Sakic's kind of intriguing just because of his last name, but I don't know if he's going to be that good. How about Ricci? It's tough to see if there's anybody that's actually this good at this point. Rogalski? I know we have 2 second rounders too. There's a guaranteed medium 4 two-way defenseman in card. That's interesting. I don't know if there's really anybody else I would take here at this point. Pollock we could probably get next round. Ooh, 2 years out though. When is our next pick? Probably kind of late as well, because I think we have, let's see, let's take a look at our draft board. What pick do we have next? Our next pick is early second round. Okay, so I should be able to get that guy with the second round pick, that next guy. So I guess we'll go with somebody else first, and then we'll grab the other dude in the second round with the Dallas pick that we got from the Frundell deal. So here... I don't know if there's anything crazy that really screams out interesting to me. I could just go with Rogalski here too. Or I could go with Card since he's guaranteed medium 4. Yeah, you know what? Let's just go with Card because I don't trust these other guys. And then we'll take the other dude in the next round. So Card, how good was he in terms of overall? At least he's got top 4 potential guaranteed. So he is a 61 overall two-way defenseman. So there is Card. Not too bad. Not too bad of a steal. I don't know how he'll develop, but I will definitely take that. Alright. So our next pick is in the second round, of course. So we'll simulate to our pick at 44th. And we should be able to grab that other guy I was just looking at that I had pinned. I think he should be still available, correct? Yeah, there he is, Pollock. Because Pollock, it says that he might be 2 years out. I know he has a weakness in character, but... it says that he might be 2 years out, so we might as well take a chance on him that he's good. He's also a big guy, 6'5", 211. So, Mohamed Pollock, let's take you. Boom. Hey, 64 overall, low lead power forward. Okay, that's really nice. That's a really good steal for the second round. Kind of what I was hoping for, but I didn't know for sure. We don't really have a lot of power forwards on this team, so if he could develop into being a really good center power forward, that might be very nice to have down the middle. Like, maybe that's what we're lacking a bit, is a little bit more power forwards and size to our team. I don't know how big our team is in general, but that's a good pick. That's a pretty good pick, considering medium 9s were just going before him. So far we're actually having a pretty solid draft for the most part. Let's go to our next pick at 61st, see if we could find anything else here, but I don't think this draft class is going to have any more crazy steals, potentially. Gabriel Chance. 3 years out. We could take him. We could go with another goalie prospect in Roussel. Might not be a bad idea to take one, but there is also Savage, who's 20 years out and 2 years... or not 20 years out, what am I saying? 20 years old and 2 years out. Not 20... imagine he was 2 years old and 20 years out. God damn. Yeah, let's take the 20-year-old. Let's take the 20-year-old. Don Savage. Might as well. He might be actually decent if he's 2 years out. Boom. 66 overall, medium 4. Kind of low for a 20-year-old, but maybe he develops. It looks like he could already probably play in the AHL if he really wanted to, but I don't know if we should play him in the AHL yet. But I still don't mind that selection. Was kind of hoping he'd be a higher overall than a 66, and higher potential than a medium 4 as well, but we'll take it. Our next pick here, we have 2 third-rounders, and then we have, I think, no picks till the 7th round, if I remember right. So we might want to go for anybody else we have pinned here soon. Oh, there's 2. Oh, there's this lowly power forward. I forgot about Neil Terry. Let's take Neil Terry with this selection already. 63 overall. Damn, that's actually way higher than expected. He is 19 years old, though. But Neil Terry joins our prospect pool. Another power forward, so maybe we're getting some more size to our lineup for the future, and maybe that could help us not get pushed around so much in the conference finals, because maybe we're just a smaller team. I didn't really look at our players' heights and stuff like that to see if we're a smaller team, but if we are a smaller team, maybe that's the reason why. Alright, so apparently we're getting offered 109th in McIntyre for 93rd. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I appreciate the offer. Probably not going to get much at this pick anyways, but still. Low 6 gem in Nicholas, who's 20 years old. He's not that great. There is a medium elite goalie. You know what? We might as well take another goalie prospect because at the moment, obviously, we do have some good goalie prospects, but we might as well grab another one to kind of grow just in case the other ones don't pan out. Or we use it as trade bait. So, Pete Irwin. What a name. Let's take you as well. Boom. 47 overall. Quite low, but at least he's another prospect that could take a while to develop, but it could end up becoming a starting goalie for this organization. Like I said, at some point, we will have to turn over from Slovyov because he might retire. Or he might become a free agent too if we decide not to resign him, which I kind of might want to resign him, but we'll see. All right, we have 2 picks left, which is round 6 and round 7, I believe, because we just didn't have picks in 4 and 5, correct? Yeah, that is the case. Okay. So can we find any steals here with our last 2 selections of this draft? So Metropolitan, are you actually a low lead or no? Probably not, but we could take a chance. There's also Skylar Holloway, but he's 20 years old and another goalie prospect. Probably don't need a goalie prospect that's 20. Anything else around this point? There's maybe a guaranteed medium starter. Probably don't need another goalie prospect. There's also Glenny. Pablo Glenny. Or Glenny. Jeez, I can barely talk. Let's play in Glenny and let's play in that other low lead and let's just do a little comparison and see if who would be the better choice probably between him and Metropolitan. Let's take a look at the 2 of these guys. So Glenny looks like that, and then Metro looks like that. Metro's the better physical player, but he's worse defensively. Everything else is the exact same pretty much right now. Metropolitan has actually some strengths. Glenny does not. So I think we're going to go for Brandon Metropolitan with this next selection. It's another sizable player, 6'3", power forward. Might as well add some more size to the lineup. So Brandon Metropolitan, welcome aboard. Bottom 6 forward, he is a power forward, which is nice, but only a bottom 6. Damn, I was hoping he'd be better. That's unfortunate. It's okay, though. At this stage, this draft class looks like it's pretty bad because there's some low bottom 6 forwards going, so didn't expect to really get too much with this pick anyways. And then our last pick of this draft, can we find anything else here? Nobody's pinned currently. Is there anybody that could be a low lead steal here? Only these 2 options. Ruben Noonan, the 20-year-old goalie. Don't really need another goalie prospect. And Caden Brookbank, who could be a low lead. Probably not. He is 18 years old. He's probably a bottom 6 grinder, but we're going to take a chance that he is a low lead. So welcome aboard to Brookbank as well. And yeah, he's a medium bottom 6 grinder, as we expected. Not a bad draft for us still, though. We did grab ourselves a lot of low leads, which is kind of nice. Hopefully some of them develop before the end of this franchise mode. But at least we're still drafting some good picks, I'd say. So McMillan's interesting. Card obviously has top 4 potential. We'll see if he develops. Pollock is decent as well. Same with Savage was okay. He's an overager, so we'll see if he develops. Terry's a good steal. And then everybody else, our Irwin's actually a good prospect too. I forgot about him being a medium league goalie. Metropolitan and Brookbank, obviously the worst 2 picks, but I'd say every other pick we had could have a chance to make the NHL, which is good. So we'll definitely take that. But who knows, maybe some of them won't even develop before the end of the series. All right, Resign stage. How much money do we got to spend? Because I was debating about making some trades at the draft, but I figured it's probably best to wait until you guys give me some feedback on trades on who you would trade away or try and trade away. So we might end up doing some of that type of thing in the next episode in free agency. Like if we want to trade away Leahy, this might be the time to do so. So we might have to make some tough decisions. We probably will end up qualifying a lot of our RFAs except for the guys that are going to be pending UFAs within a year. So, was it only the 1 scout? I think it was only the 1 scout that needs to come back. What was his name again? Oh yeah, it was Tapper. Of course, it had to be like on the bottom of this list. So there you go, Tapper. Take the contract. No RFA goalies this season, which is good. Resign stage. How much money? 24 million bucks. That's so low. Maybe I should have freed up some cap space at the draft. Trotter's pretty much ready for the AHL. And he is AHL eligible. So I think we got to sign this guy. He was our first round pick last year. So we'll sign this guy to his ELC. So he can play down in Bridgeport. Aside from that, I think I'm going to wait on some of these other dudes. Unless you guys think for next episode I should sign some of them. But we'll wait on that. RFAs. We will obviously send some money to some of the AHL defenders. 1 year is fine with me. Nice little cheap contract. Savage, you want 2-way? Yes, you do. We'll do that. These guys are all going to want 1-way, so I'll come back to them in a second. UFAs. Let's go to the bottom of this list. So we do have a lot of low leads that need contracts here, which is kind of crazy. So we'll get Esh obviously signed up here, because he's a 70 overall. Menino is a 66 at 21. I might as well just sign all these low elites and hope that they all pan out, but there's a chance that some might not pan out. Also, Abney, I guess, should get signed since he's medium 6. We might have to free up some roster room. I don't know about signing Petrella, even though he's a 69, which is a pretty good overall, and he's low 9, 22 years old already. Yeah, I'm not going to sign you. Just because I don't want to have too many contracts on this team. Ramjit Singh will get signed as well, or Rammer we'll call him. And then Strombolopoulos obviously will get his ELC as well. We'll probably let go of some older guys in EHL, so 209 just to free up some roster room a little bit. We'll let go of our depth forwards that we signed in Olsen and Bartley. We only have these 2 guys as UFAs and in Menard. Like I said, Menard's got to be gone, though, because of Komatov. So even though Menard was good for us in the playoffs, we have to salute him. So thank you for your 1 year here. I appreciate you playing for our team. But there's a younger option that should be our backup next year. So, boom. So Benjamin Menard is gone. Gustafsson and Korolyuk, I'm honestly thinking of letting go of Korolyuk, unless I was to basically trade away Leahy. If I trade away Leahy, Korolyuk could become the 3rd-line center. He is a little bit younger. He has been getting better every single season, but there's no way Korolyuk should be a 4th-line center next year. Absolutely no way. So I got to think on that a little bit more. Gustafsson, bringing him back as a top 6 defenseman is not a bad option. He is a right-handed shot, but he wants $3 million, which is kind of pricey for a guy that's a 78. So I think for now, I'm probably going to let go of Gustafsson, even though we just brought him in from Chicago. And I don't think he's going to come back for now. He wasn't a great fit really on that top 6 pairing either, I don't think, if I remember right. So for now, we're going to let him go, but we might bring him back if we want to. In terms of our RFAs here, these guys are going to be pretty pricey. I'm going to qualify probably Carlton for now just because he's not played a lot of experience so far. Holmstrom still has a lot of years left of RFA status, and I don't really feel like paying him $6 million. How was he last season again? I know he was injured a little bit. Let's see, 17 points, 48 games. So basically by that logic, how much points was he on pace for? Because maybe that'll help me make an easier decision if I want to re-sign him already to a long-term deal. I don't feel like I do, but I'm not too sure. Let's see, times that by 82. He was only on pace for like 29 points. So it wasn't much better than his rookie season. His playoff numbers have been okay at times, but his plus minus in the first 2 playoff years weren't very good. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to assign him long term yet. Long term would probably... We could probably knock him down quite a bit, and right-handed defenders are pretty valuable. But 5.7 for 5 years, I feel like might break the bank a bit too much. So I'm going to just qualify him as well. Bigris, I think, only has 1 year left before he becomes a UFA. Let's see. Yeah, that is the case. So a 2-year deal for Bigris to me is good, I think, just because obviously if you only do the 1 year, he might walk to free agency. We could probably get him down quite a bit too, which is also good. So let's try like 4.4 for 2 years. A little trial contract. Maybe he gets into our top 6 if we end up losing Seal Fido as well during this contract stuff. So I think that's good to assign him for a couple years. And he could be a top 6 replacement for him. Ragnarsson is an interesting one. He still has a lot of years of RFA status too. Right now wants a 6 by 11. 6 years is not bad to me because 8 years, you don't ever know what he's going to do. He wasn't super good in the playoffs at times, but he is getting better every single regular season up to this point. But his playoff numbers, like I said, have been kind of all over the place. He is a first-line forward. He should definitely be one of those guys that would replace Seal Fido at some point, too. How much would we be able to get him down to, potentially? Let's see, at the minimum. Maybe under 10. Maybe under 10. I could maybe get him for 9,975 for 6. I'm trying to think if that's worth it. I think that would be worth it. Obviously, it's a good chunk of our cap space we have left. But like I said, I'm planning on maybe moving out some players in next episode anyways. Like I said, Leahy's probably one of those ones I would part ways with. He would get rid of $5 million. If we lost to Tard free agency in a year, if we lose Solovyov, we'll free up more cap space. So this won't look like the worst contract in the world. So, you know what? I think I'm going to give Ragnarsson a 6-year deal. It's a little trial run. Has no clause, too, which is good because that means at least we'll have that flexibility to trade him away. Not like a lot of the other guys in the top 6. So let's do it and see if he'll accept that money. Schaefer on his contract. He does not want an extension, but he wants a 5-year deal with 4 years of it being a no trade clause. I mean, he would be our only defenseman with a clause other than our top guy in Houghton. What could I get him down to if he wants this no trade clause? Let's see. Might be unable to knock this down quite a bit because of this no trade clause, which is actually kind of nice. Let's talk this up a little bit. Let's go to 8.1. 8.1 for 5 years for an 87 overall defenseman is not too bad. Like I said, it's a 5-year deal, so it's not super long term. I'm not a huge fan of it having a no trade clause, but if I changed this to like a modified no trade clause, it does lose a little bit of value. But I could keep it on a modified no trade clause instead and then give him a little bit more money, but I don't know if that'd be worth it. Maybe it would be. Let's see. I wouldn't have to give him that much more. Like 8.3 instead for 5 years on a modified. If I added more trade protection and stuff like that anyways, then that should help things too. Let's do a 25% trade protection. 5 by 8.3. It is another expensive contract, but let's do it. We don't really have a lot of cap space, so we might be already tied up on a lot of cap, which means next episode for sure, we might have to offload some players. And I'm not too sure exactly who I would part ways with. I might have to get somebody with a no movement clause to waive their contract potentially, but we also could trade away Seal Fido before next season if we really want to, since he's a pending UFA. Cash out while we have the chance. Yeah, there might be some tough decisions. I think for sure Corley's going to be gone now because of these contracts. But let's advance a day and see if we get those big guys back. Schaefer, Ragnarsson, and Bigris. And then hopefully the RFAs don't cost too much that are qualified. So Bigris is back. That's great to see. Schaefer is back. That's great to see. And Ragnarsson is back. That's great to see. Awesome. We're down to $5.7 million in cap space. That means Koryuk for sure is gone unless I get rid of Leahy in next episode. Oh boy. Because I can't trade him now, which means I'd have to wait. I'd have to basically let Koryuk go to free agency first to do that. I don't think that's worth it at that point. I am definitely going to still think about trading away Leahy for sure, I think, because he's listed as a second-line forward and he's playing third-line time. So, I think we're going to let go of Koryuk. So, shout to Koryuk. Didn't really get a huge chance here, but he's going to get a good chance somewhere else. I just don't really think I have the money to spend. So, that's a player to let go of. These two guys are going to cost us probably most of the cap space we have left. Yeah, we don't even have the cap space to sign Holmstrom right now, or Carlton. Which means next episode for sure, we have to part ways with somebody. Let's take a look at these cap hits a little bit more in depth here. And see what we need and what we don't need. So, obviously, our goaltending, Solovyov's in the last year of his deal. Hypothetically, we could trade Solovyov before the season starts if we wanted, but I don't think he's been the problem here. It would free us up a lot of money, though. But then we could run Komatov and Nicholas in the NHL next season, which I don't know if I would want to do that. I was planning more to do Komatov, Solovyov, Nicholas with Vishnevsky, AHL, that type of thing. Defensively, obviously, we're not parting ways with Houghton. And Tatar's in the last year of his deal. If we sign Holmstrom long-term, maybe we could part ways with Tatar, but I don't know if I want to because he's a top 2 defenseman. Schaefer obviously just got signed. We do still need to part ways with a defenseman, probably. Actually, maybe not. But Fisher's a pending UFA. We could free up some cap space that way, but it's not too much. So defensively, there's not really anybody probably that needs to be moved. From an offensive standpoint, Dempsey's in his first year. We could move out from Ulanov, but he's not going to free up us up a lot of cap space. Left wing side of things, Crane obviously is getting paid a lot of money, but he has a no movement clause. So if we wanted to trade our captain, we'd have to get him to waive. I don't see that happening. Sealfido's probably the one that would make the most sense. I do not want to move from Sealfido because I was hoping to hold on to him long term after this contract ended. He would free us up $8.55 million in cap space. And who knows, he could be a free agent at the end of the year if he decides to leave. But he's been a great player here. But maybe this is what we need to do to make our team better. He's been really good, but we get rid of him. That would give Ragnarsson that top 6 ice time, and Kazanov maybe a chance up there. Biggers a chance up there. I don't know if Biggers' contract makes the most sense because it's $4.4 million, but I think Biggers had a pretty solid year last year in the playoffs a little bit. 6 points, maybe not. He was pretty solid though at times, I feel like, so I think he could still get better. And he is a second line forward, so if he gets a chance to play in the top 6 because Sealfield gets moved out, that might not be a bad option. It would also help Mishenko get more ice time. But in terms of left wingers, nobody here I would move probably other than Sealfido just because he's the easiest one to move because he's not got a clause attached. And in centers, there is a ton of them with clauses. If we wanted to trade one of these 3, we'd have to get them all to waive. So I don't really know what we do here. They're all 28 years old as well, so it's a tough decision there. Mäkinen usually always leads the team in points. Bjorkstrand's been inconsistent as of the last number of years. He's also been injury prone. Giordano's been kind of good. So maybe I'd lean towards getting Bjorkstrand a waive, but I don't think he'd waive, to be honest. Leahy would be the easiest one to move out of these centers because he's got, obviously, the modified no trade clause part. So, and he is losing morale because of players that we let go of. So maybe trading Leahy and trading Sealfido would be an okay option, but I don't know if that's too much movement for our team. But it would free us up 5.8. It would free us up 8.5, so another $13 million in cap space for next offseason, because obviously we are going to start having to dish out more money as these years go on. So yeah, it's probably the plan as of right now would be to do that. Like I said, I don't really want to part ways with Sealfido, but it's probably something we have to think about realistically. So, as unfortunate as it is, we do need that cap space to re-sign both these guys. Carlton being listed as a top 4 is not ideal. We could trade away his rights if we wanted to, because we don't necessarily need the guy. Because at the moment, the top 4 would be still Howden, Tatar, Schaefer, Holmstrom. So Carlton would not be getting that much ice time. He'd be playing on a top 6 pairing with Fisher, probably. So we could trade away Carlton's rights. Holmstrom I would love to hold on to, obviously, for that top 4, because he's a right D-man. But, yeah, I think the way we would get him re-signed is by trading away some people, probably. And then also, then we'll have more money for free agents, potentially, too, if we want to. But I don't know if there's anybody we're signing anyways, but that's likely what our plan is going forward. So let's simulate to free agency and see what's available as we get our scout back. Let's see what's available. We'll also take a look at the trading block, too. But we have some tough decisions ahead for sure. So, in terms of the free agent pool, we might as well look at that first. And I meant to put my face back on the screen. I didn't even realize I still had it off. Let's see. UFA goalies. We don't need goalies. Brigas Komatov will be the backup, but we might as well still look at this anyways. Best goalies available, 88s overall. So there's some good goalies available, including our former goalie in Kudobin, who has won a Stanley Cup also since leaving us. So there's multiple guys that have done that. We don't really need any of these guys, but there's the goalies. From a defensive standpoint, we don't really need defensemen unless we were to trade away somebody on the defensive core. And then if we were to trade away Carlton, I guess we need a top 6. So we could end up maybe needing a defenseman, but it depends if we decide to part ways with anybody that's on our current defensive core. We could maybe use a depth defenseman, but we should be able to find somebody for relatively cheap, I would assume. Like somebody down here, like $900K for Holmquist. That's a pretty good little deal, probably. It would be nice to have a right-handed depth defenseman, but they're not easy to come by. This Nishushkin guy could maybe work a bit too. He is an OFD though. So we could probably bring in a depth defenseman, but obviously we need to still free up cap space if we want to do that. And then from an offensive standpoint, if we do get rid of Leahy, we would need a new third-line center. Or a new bottom 6 center, potentially. So we got to look for maybe something like that. Former players of ours, Ellington and Neil Kynan, are both headed to free agency. So shout out to those guys. They played good in their respective teams. Ellington in Utah. And Neil Kynan was in LA, right? Yeah, Neil Kynan had 54 points last year in LA. 4 points in 6 playoff games. And then he's back to free agency. All right. Sundin's also back to free agency, so shout out to Sundin. Forgot we dealt him away. He only played 1 game with the Kings after we dealt him there, and never got to play a playoff game. It would be okay to have him maybe back in a bottom 6 role, but I'm not too sure if that's what I want for sure. So there is all that. There's also Cole Caulfield at 40 years old. What the hell would 40-year-old Cole Caulfield look like? Like, he wouldn't definitely look like this babyface guy, right? Damn, okay. So there is that. Left wing perspective. William Eklund is the best on left wing side of things. He was just playing on the top line with Guerin in New York. Yeah, 5 points in 10 games, of course, because we took them out. Let's see. Slavkovsky's there at 37. There's a lot of decent players, but nobody crazy, it seems like right now. But we do need to free up cap space, which means trading might be the play for us rather than signing. So, let's see what we got for centers. Marco Kasper, Coletta, Moeller. Like I said, if we do trade away Leahy, though, in next episode, maybe I'll bring back Koryuk for that third-line center spot. He does like our organization still. Doesn't want a ton of money or term. He is younger, too. So we could give Koryuk a chance as a third-line C if we do that. That might be the best play for us. So there is all that. Okay. In terms of the trading block, I guess we'll look at that shortly. I do want to go to the coaching staff for a second. We did lose our associate coach to retirement. I thought that's what was the case in the last episode. So we do need a new associate coach, which means obviously we're just going to go for the best coach that fits our team, which is like probably going to be one of these top guys. There's a 52. Yeah, probably somebody like Rudzinski could work. Let's see, anybody better than that? Klepish. Yeah, good work. So yeah, we'll probably bring in somebody like that, or we could just bring in another A-plus coach if we really want to, just to give ourselves a better coaching staff. We also need a goalie coach again, so obviously we'll do that in the next episode. So that's all good. Final thing, we got to take a look at the trading block. So is there anybody interesting on the block that we could potentially trade for when we trade away, obviously, Leahy and stuff like that? We don't really need prospects. We probably would trade for picks, if anything. But let's take a look at what we got here. If there's anybody cool. Pecker's on the block. That's nothing crazy. More prospects. Loktionov is a depth defenseman. Engqvist is a top 4 defenseman. That's actually a pretty good player, but not something I really need. Because obviously we have some defensemen currently RFAs. So defense is probably one of our last needs. It would be more of a forward type of thing. Because we might be trading away some forwards. I wonder what the heck Seal Fido and all that would fetch us. But like I said, I don't really want to part ways with Seal Fido. But I also know that he's a pending free agent, so this is probably the best point that we make a trade with him. Grayson Sachin is a third-line center. Wouldn't really work with this team. He's already listed as a second-line forward, so he's not really much better than Leahy. Unfortunately, I thought he would be better, but he's also making a lot of money, which we don't have that money. LA's got a goalie on the block. 5 years left at 7.9. Damn. At 22. Kind of surprised he's on the block. Maybe they need that cap space. Nashville, nobody really there. New Jersey, there's another goalie in Frolov. Not really seeing a ton on the block. Matvey Michkov is on the block at 36. But the problem with him is he's making $13.5 million. So they're looking to offload that big-ass salary. He is still a good player at his age, too, but there's no way we're bringing in somebody like Michkov to this team. We just can't afford to give a guy $13 million unless I got him on 50% retained. Also, he has apparently a 29 team no trade, and we're probably not on his tradable team list. So, yeah. Caleb Desnoyers is making $15 million. Holy crap, they are paying some of these guys a ton of money. If this guy was making less, maybe he would be a good third-line center, but he's also pretty much just as good as Leahy. What else we got here? Peros is a backup goalie. Not too bad. St. Louis has nothing. There's not a lot on the block whatsoever. Smith in Toronto. Obviously, Toronto just beat us in the conference finals. I mean, Brady Smith as a bottom 6 option. It's not really that bad. He actually has had some good offensive seasons as well. Damn. Yeah, he's actually pretty good. He's pretty good, but he's originally drafted by the Blackhawks. Huh. He's not bad, but he is making a bit too much money. But him on like a reduced contract in a bottom 6 role with maybe some power play or penalty kill time might not be bad. There's also goaltender Vorobyov that they have. It's been in the AHL's in 81. The reason he's on the block is because he hasn't gotten to play in the NHL yet at this point in time. Utah just has some prospects. Nothing in Vancouver. Nothing really in Vegas. Washington has nothing. And then there's Ethan Belchet's in Winnipeg. He's also only on a 1-year deal left, but he's making a lot of money. Doesn't really pick up the most amount of points, at least as of this season. He's on a little bit of a decline, it looks like, at his age. So, yeah, I don't really see too much in terms of players I would trade for. But if we go to find trade right now, I don't know if we'd actually have any deals thrown at us. But if we went like, say, Seal Fido, we could get 2 second-round picks for Seal Fido from either of those teams. We could get Comrie, who just got drafted in a 5th-round pick from the Caps. Hey, that might not be a bad lateral move. That might not be a bad lateral move, because Comrie's that guy we literally just looked at the draft. Him in a 5th-round pick, he's a couple years out from being an NHLer, but is another medium elite, what am I saying? Medium elite player, and he's a right winger, which is kind of nice. So we could do that, but would we want to do that? I'm not sure. It's either that or 2 second-round picks, or we could try and finesse a 1st-rounder. but Ciofito would fetch us some decent return. And then, as I said, the other player on the hot seat would be Leahy. Leahy, obviously, since he has a modified no trade clause, we could only trade him away to a few teams. Those being Chicago, of course, after they won a Stanley Cup, Dallas, LA, Nashville, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Utah, and Washington. So a lot of Western Conference teams. And then Pittsburgh and Washington are the only Eastern Conference teams. So if I went fine trade on him, the only offer was, actually no, there's 11 offers. I thought that said 1 out of 1. So Chicago would give us a third rounder in a defenseman, but he's making too much money. They'd also give us that Enqvist guy in a fourth, which obviously he's making a lot of money. We don't really need him. Pittsburgh would give us Blomqvist, who's a top 6 forward prospect, in a third round pick. That might be okay. They'd also just give us just this top 6 forward prospect in Pearson, also Trevica, Thalberger. Washington would give us top 6 forward prospects Andersons in a fifth. They'd also give us Shea. They'd give us Fast, Scatcherd, and Gogolev. So a lot of top 6 forward prospects between Pittsburgh and Washington. And then the only Western Conference teams willing to take Leahy was Chicago. And they just give us a depth defenseman, our top 4 defenseman even for that matter. So I probably prefer the prospects, but we'd have to look individually at every single one of these prospects. So maybe that's something we'll do in next episode, is compare all these prospects. But I think Leahy's on the hot seat, and I think Ciofito might be on the hot seat this offseason, which would be quite a drastic change to our team. And then we'd have to hope that the no movement clause guys actually still play good, because these contracts are kind of anchors at this point. So there is that. Anything else we want to take a look at before we end this episode? I don't feel like we do. But I know that we are going to have some youth injection from the AHL. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Or not from the AHL, from junior. Because one player that is going to be jumping to our NHL team likely this season is going to be Nelson Dempsey, who didn't even get to play in the AHL at all, but he was that second round low elite. He's developed really well, has a really good shot. So I think also maybe we could get him into almost like a third line or top 6 role. He definitely should get power play time with his shooting category. So I'm really excited for this guy. He could be what we need on this team, as another good goal scorer. But yeah, he's going to be jumping up for sure. Aside from that, guys like Nielsen, probably not yet. Savage might come close to it. He might come close. But the way he would get into the lineup full time is probably moving away some roster player like Ciofito. But yeah, we definitely have a lot of guys making a ton of money on this team. So I think Leahy, moving him out would be a good idea. And then we'd also have to move Ciofito. We probably still need more centers, though, if we move out Leahy, which means maybe bringing back Koryuk as a third-line center. And then we don't really have a fourth-line center unless we use this Spruks guy, which we could do. He might be okay down there. I'm not too sure, though. So, a lot of working parts with this team, but we definitely have some decisions to make in that next episode. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of New York Islanders Franchise Mode. So, in next episode, we will have free agency. We might make some pretty big trades to hopefully give some of our guys more ice time on the team. Also kind of maybe send a little bit of a message to the rest of the team that, hey, we need to win now and we need to do it quick, because obviously we don't have a lot of time left before the franchise mode's ends. So hopefully those send the right message. Hopefully the guys we trade away don't go on to win a Stanley Cup instead of us. But we probably have to make some drastic changes to try and get this team that Stanley Cup win. So I think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.